Hello. Today we're going to talk about transfer skills for transfer and non-traditional students. This presentation is from transfer to transferable skills. Now, as transfer students, you've already demonstrated resilience, adaptability, and commitment to your education by being here. Now, we are looking at how do we start taking your experience and applying it forward so that you are not starting from zero when it comes to looking at the workplace. Whether you've worked before, volunteered, helped raise a family, or pursue non-traditional paths before getting here, today's purpose and presentation is really to discuss how we can take those experiences to the future as well as your future career. So, learning outcomes. We're going to understand what transferable skills are, identify and acknowledge how those show up based off of our previous experiences, apply those skills to various scenarios in the future market, and learn how to properly communicate those skills while developing and growing towards new career opportunities as they arise. So, quick acknowledgement. As a transfer or non-traditional student, often you are going to have a much broader perspective than a college student just starting out early in their career. This could mean previous work, significant familial responsibilities, working with the community college for an extended period of time, being in the service or armed services, or working with the community, whether with volunteerism or other projects. So we have students coming in with a lot of additional experiences that we need to acknowledge and recognize as an asset to their journey. So, when talking about transferable skills are skills gained in one experience that can be applied to another experience. So, in the past, this would have been called soft skills or interpersonal skills, but really they are skills that you develop on the job or while you are doing certain activities. So, as we start talking about transferable skills, realize that transferable skills really can come from anywhere. So, why do transferable skills matter? Well, from the perspective of a hiring manager, really hiring is a skills-based approach. So, transferable skills can allow an employer to understand how you can apply your skills into future roles that you're applying to. And depending on what you're trying to do, a lot of times these skills actually are agnostic or completely separate from your major or anything academic. Now, you can get some transferable skills from your academic experience, but really we're talking about skills that are a combination of what you've uniquely learned and developed in your current experiences and how you are going to apply them and set yourself apart, utilizing those skills outside of anything that everybody else will be doing, such as pursuing the same job or having the same degree. So, some examples, and this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a good start, right? So, we have analytical and critical thinking skills, professionalism, resilience, leadership, social influence, time management, teamwork. There are a lot of different ways to think about how can I communicate my transferable skills, and we're just going to start with some examples of how to think about these skills. So, now that we have an understanding of what transferable skills are, let's think about how we can find and apply these skills. So, listed are some very common transferable skills: communication, problem solving, leadership, etc. Now, look at the examples. So, with transferable skills, we're really thinking about okay, what are the actions or the things being said in our experiences or in the things that we've done in the past. Remember, this is regardless of if it's working with a family member through a health crisis, to volunteering at a food bank or a blood drive, to working a part-time job. These examples are really about looking at what is the language that we can use to demonstrate skills, right? So, for example, presented in a class or led a team meeting. Those are communication based actions and part of communication skills. Overseeing a committee or project, uh, those are skills based around leadership and working with people. Learning new tools like AI or becoming adept at TikTok for a student project that can show adaptability and willingness to learn new techniques, right? So this is just a overview of some ways we want to start seeing how we are communicating those skills and where those skills naturally pop up in our resume or when we start talking about what we've done before. So let's apply it. Babysitting, effective communication, problem solving, adaptability, time management, creativity. As a babysitter, somebody can have a lot of these skills as part of just doing their job, right? Being able to effectively communicate with the parents as needed when something happens, or to make sure that somebody's being properly taken care of, their children. Being able to solve daily problems of what comes up with taking care of somebody. Being able to be adaptable, being able to fit this in your schedule, especially if you were working full time as a babysitter while going to school, like some of my students, and thinking creatively about maybe how to keep them engaged. Right, as a babysitter, you can't always just let them be on their own. So, what are maybe some activities that you thought about, or some novel or different ways you can help those that you're taking care of? Right, those are creative processes that babysitters many times will have to do just by the nature of their work. So, taking a step back, now let's think about now that we've recognized how we can talk about skills and where they show up, let's talk about some of the more popular skills that time and time again that we see many recruiters and many markets like to talk about or at least see communicated within the resume or interview. So looking at the top 10 skills that we see nowadays, based off of recent information, we start to see that transferable skills still take up a good portion of the market and are in the top 10. So these skills can be about analytical thinking, resiliency or flexibility and adaptability, leadership skills or social skills, creative thinking, like I just mentioned before, motivation and self-awareness, right? These are all skills that are developed through life experience. And so they're not necessarily based off of degree or how much you did of something, but really things that you are widely applicable that many companies are still desperately looking at for our students to actually be able to communicate in their job search, in their resume, in interviews. Now that we've recognized some of these critically important transferable skills, we can also think about how do we apply them when we want to branch out into different careers or new opportunities for work. So, taking all of your experience from before, let's think about how do we maybe retool it to areas that you might not expect that these skills will still be valid and important. Thinking to the future, we can think about, okay, critical thinking, analytical skills. How can I apply that with future projects? There is a rise in AI usage and big data. And so, can we apply these critical thinking skills to how we can work with AI models, how we can work with those designing those models with the lens of being able to ask critically important questions about how is this going to work for the everyday person? How do we make this applicable? Right? When we're talking communication and analytical skills, we can also think about, oddly enough, cybersecurity. There is things like social engineering or social hacking that does happen. And so maybe if we have a good understanding of how do we recognize uh, kind of these social engineered attacks, maybe we can apply our vast ability to communicate well with working with cybersecurity on prevention of hacking or being part of ethical hacking for companies in consultation, right? A completely different skill set than what people would expect utilizing communication. If we're thinking about how we leverage our ability to learn or adapt. Maybe we're going to be able to leverage building up our ability to work with teams looking for different and new skills. Maybe I'm going to retrain myself. Or maybe I'm going to say, all right, if I want to be very literate and in the know, I'm going to be able to apply some of the skills I have before in critical thinking and analysis, and then apply it to risk management and helping them problem solve skills through a creative lens, looking for solutions outside of the norm, right? Or maybe with time management, simply saying, you know what, with all these time management skills, I can take on projects in new fields. Maybe I want to think about how can I work with sustainability or the environment, but be a project manager in that area where I'm able to keep people on track towards a shared goal of maybe a cleaner environment or more efficient usage of our natural resources, right? So these are just some examples of how we can start thinking about our transferable skills in new places and how we can take that next step from recognizing our skills to really owning them and then applying them into the future. So, with that, another way to think about this is to be able to take a self inventory for yourself. So, what's provided is a strengths framework, which is one of many types of frameworks that exist out there. For purposes of this presentation, it's really to get you to start thinking about what are my strengths and how is that going to sound and show up as transferable skills. So we've broken it down into four categories: thinkers, doers, relators, organizers. Now, that's a way of thinking of yourself, but it could also be a way people describe you. And you can have more than one, right? This is not exclusive or mutually exclusive. These are concepts and frameworks to start thinking about skills. So, a thinker could be somebody who likes to analyze and really think through problems, right? And so that falls within strengths like analytical thinking, curiosity, strategic thinking. Doers are my people who are action oriented, right? So when I'm going to uh, be a doer, I'm probably somebody that's going to be able to speak to taking initiative, being results driven, being able to persist through difficult circumstances, resilience, in order to achieve a specific goal. Relators are my interpersonal people, right? They like to connect well with others. So we can start talking about empathy, communication, teamwork. Those are skills that are usually related to those interpersonal strengths. And then my organizers are people that like structure and order. I myself feel a lot of times as an organizer where I like planning, reliability, being detail oriented, having a structure and system in place to make things run smoother. So those are my organizers. So with that strengths framework, you can then start looking at, okay, everything that I've done and ask yourself, what strengths do I have based off of these frameworks? What does that sound like? And once we know what that sounds like, we can then really see what strengths then we can highlight on resumes, on applications, on cover letters, on interview, right? Because we'll know what that sounds like and we'll be able to target keywords that are important to make sure that are said as part of that process in the job market. So now that we've given you the tools to think about skills, we're going to teach you a process that can be very helpful, and it's in three parts: naming, claiming, and aiming skills. So, how does it work? Name it is identifying skills that you've acquired through your previous experiences. Again, non-traditional, not necessarily work related, but previous circumstances in which you've had to develop skills. So, just naming what those things are is important. Once we do, we can then claim it. So when we claim a skill, we're going to work on understanding how we are going to communicate this about ourselves. This is really about how do we advocate for ourselves through talking about the skill sets we have developed, right? As a babysitter, I had to be on top of not only communicating with the parents, managing my time with the children that I was responsible for, being able to think very creatively on the fly when things happened with the kids, or if they needed help with specific areas, being ready at a moment's notice to pivot and help them in that moment, right? So being able to talk about claiming a skill. And then now we aim it. So we expand on our skill by targeting areas that we are interested in applying to, or jobs and job descriptions that we can then apply our skills to that same or that different job that we are looking at. So really it's about identifying the opportunities to apply developed skills into areas that maybe you haven't considered before or maybe haven't actively pursued before. So let's put it into practice. When we name it, I want you to think about what do you do regularly in the roles and activities that you've had in before. If we take food service as an example, it can be everything from customer service, coordination of schedules, working efficiently. Then we think about within that experience, what were moments that we were able to solve problems, overcome challenges, talk about the actions that we have taken that really demonstrate the skills that we have? So it could be resolving complaints, taking inventory, understanding complex orders, and being detail oriented, right? How do we talk about now our experience using the language of skills? And then when in doubt, pro tip, you can always ask somebody else, does this sound right? How does this sound when I talk about this experience? And see if you are communicating those skills that you have identified. So once we start working through that, we lead into then applying it on paper, right? So how can I show appreciation or value for my skills? So maybe when I'm going to put this together, I'm going to say, okay, I have these skills as an asset. What are potential opportunities to highlight it? My resume, my cover letter, interviews, right? And when I showcase those skills, how can I utilize that language to really advocate, right? So this is where we start thinking about interview and resume and start saying, I'm going to use the STAR method to showcase my skills. For those who don't know the STAR method, it is situation, task, action, result. So the situation was I had a customer complaint. The task at hand was to resolve the issue in a timely manner and find out why they were unhappy. I took the following actions, communicating with them, coordinating what we can do to meet their expectations, highlighting, all the things that were what I did in the process to really highlight the skills necessary to get through the circumstance and then talk about the results. So as a result, I not only maintained the customer relationship that I had with the individual, I also got praise for being able to resolve a more complicated issue and were able to build better relationships in the future. Right. So situation, task, action, result is how we are going to start claiming our skills as we talk about it and also advocate for ourselves about what we've done utilizing those skills. Once that's worked on, we then can claim it to new fields and new opportunities. So, building on the skills that I've already developed, what are markets or places that I could potentially apply those skills either in a new environment or through a new job? Maybe my communication skills are going to be helpful for a sales position, but they could also be helpful for a tech startup, or they could even be helpful for a lab or administrative role. The point is, once you start realizing what transferable skills you have, you realize that they are incredibly versatile and that you can use them in new markets in other areas you might have not thought before that you had any connection to, but might be actually a good fit based off of your skills. And then, when in doubt, if you still feel like you need to develop more towards a new career, you can always grow, right? So, not only recognizing the skills that you have is critically important, and communicating them to new jobs is equally as valuable. If we still feel like we can grow, which we should all feel, we can also identify understanding what skills I already have and how I'm communicating them. Are there other things I would like to learn, train myself on, or work towards so that I can grow as a professional and into the roles I want to have? Another way to think about it, and another way to kind of help sometimes is if my end goal is this specific profession and I already have quite a few skills that are in alignment, are there other roles I can apply to or work on utilizing the skills that I have that will help me make up the difference so that I can eventually make it to an ideal role for myself? So the idea is no experience is wasted, right? And so think about not only what you have and how you apply it, but if there's opportunities for you to branch out and to grow and to develop the other skills you would like to have to work towards professions that make sense for you. So, final reminders when it comes to developing transferable skills and really thinking about your experiences differently, this is your journey and it's your strengths. So, every person is going to have different experiences, personal and professional. Many people go through non-traditional pathways to get through their education and work. So, you want to be able to acknowledge and understand from not only your perspective, but also know that you are going to come into the field with skills based off of that experience and perspective. Next thing, skills speak louder than titles. So I don't care about a title of a job or a description nearly as much as what is being said about that through skills, right? Babysitting job, somebody might have judgments on the title of that job. But at the same time, what are we saying about the skills that we developed and how we navigated those experiences? That is going to speak much louder to a recruiter than just the title of work. Now that you understand some of the strategies, next tip is to really practice it. Name it, claim it, aim it, reflect, claim and acknowledge, and then apply moving forward to the professions that you want to work towards, right? This is all designed to help you grow towards the areas that you want to work towards. Next is practice professionalism. So, the power behind your skills is being able to understand how you are going to communicate these skills. And so, professionalism is always helpful in really showing that you are taking the time to not only value your skills, but help you advocate effectively. Second to last thing, embrace growth. So, now that we've acknowledged our skills, we understand maybe some opportunities of what we can look at and where to grow towards. Always consider what am I learning from my current experiences? What can I learn from new experiences I am targeting? And how does that help me grow towards better opportunities every time I do something? So always embrace a growth mindset when it comes to skill development. And last but not least, use the resources at your disposal and ask for help. There are so many resources available, not only just as a student, but around you in your networks. Asking people simply, does this sound like me? What are the things that you appreciate about me? And what do you think some of my skills are? Can be just as powerful as any of the large tools out there. Besides that, you can always utilize resources from the Career Center and talk to mentors and colleagues that can really help you recognize and talk through what your skills are. So when in doubt, find your resources and ask for help. With that, we've gone over a overview of transferable skills and how to apply them based off of your experiences as a traditional or excuse me, transfer or non-traditional student, and hopefully that will help give you some tools and strategies moving forward to not only embrace your experience, but apply it to new experiences moving forward.